The gunshot that killed Olivia Ramsey's husband was the first honest thing in their entire marriage, and she felt nothing but relief standing over his grave in the dusty cemetery outside Challis, Idaho Territory, on that scorching July afternoon in 1878. The sun beat down mercilessly on the handful of mourners, who had gathered more out of obligation than genuine grief. Olivia stood rigid in her black dress, sweat trickling down her spine, her gloved hands folded primly before her. She was 23 years old and had been married for 5 years to Marcus Ramsey, a man 30 years her senior who had purchased her from her desperate father like one might purchase livestock. The transaction had been dressed up in the language of matrimony and respectable society, but Olivia had always known the truth. She had been property, pure and simple. Marcus had made that abundantly clear from their wedding night forward. He dictated what she wore, what she ate, when she spoke, and when she remained silent. He controlled every penny, every moment of her day, every breath she took within the walls of their modest house on the edge of town. When she displeased him, which was often according to his exacting standards, he would lock her in the cellar for days at a time with nothing but stale bread and water. When that did not satisfy his need for control, his fists did the talking. The reverend droned on about eternal rest and the mysteries of God's plan, but Olivia barely heard him. She was too busy calculating her next moves. Marcus had been shot in a dispute over a card game at the saloon 3 nights ago, dying slowly and painfully over the course of 2 days. In his final hours, delirious with fever, he had cursed her name and accused her of causing his downfall through her inadequacy as a wife. Even death had not softened him. Now she was free, or so she thought. After the burial, as the other mourners dispersed quickly in the oppressive heat, a portly man in an expensive suit approached her. His name was Vernon Thatcher, and he was a lawyer from Boise who had traveled specifically for this occasion. "Mrs. Ramsey, I must speak with you regarding your late husband's affairs," he said, mopping his florid face with a handkerchief. Olivia nodded stiffly. "Of course. Shall we speak at the house? That would be appropriate." The walk back to town was silent and uncomfortable. Olivia had never had much use for lawyers, and Vernon Thatcher struck her as particularly oily. Something in his manner set her teeth on edge, though she could not quite pinpoint what. Once inside the small house, she offered him water, which he accepted gratefully. They sat in the parlor, such as it was, with its worn furniture and faded curtains. Olivia had done her best to make the space livable, but Marcus had been stingy with household funds, preferring to spend his money on whiskey and gambling. "Mrs. Ramsey, I am afraid I have some distressing news," Thatcher began, setting down his glass. "Your husband died deeply in debt. The house, the land, everything he owned is mortgaged beyond its value. Furthermore, there are outstanding gambling debts that his creditors will expect to be honored." Olivia felt her stomach drop. How much? Nearly $3,000 all told. It might as well have been $3 million. Olivia had no money of her own, no skills that would earn her substantial wages, and no family to turn to. Her father had drunk himself to death 2 years ago, and her mother had died giving birth to her. She had no siblings, no cousins, no one. "What am I to do?" she asked, hating the tremor in her voice. Thatcher leaned forward, his small eyes gleaming. "As it happens, Mrs. Ramsey, I have a proposal. I am a widower myself, and I find myself in need of a wife to manage my household in Boise. If you were to marry me, I would assume your late husband's debts and provide you with a comfortable home." Olivia stared at him, comprehension dawning slowly and sickeningly. "You wish to marry me?" "Indeed. I think it would be a mutually beneficial arrangement. You need financial security, and I need a wife. We could be married within the week and depart for Boise immediately. I have only just buried my husband today, Olivia said, her voice flat. Yes, and I understand that this is a difficult time, but practical matters must be addressed, Mrs. Ramsey. Without my assistance, you will lose everything. The creditors will seize the house within the month and you will be destitute. A woman alone in your position has very few options, and most of them are quite unpleasant. The threat was clear. Marry him or face poverty and ruin, possibly even being forced into prostitution to survive. It was Marcus all over again, just in a different package. Another man viewing her as property to be acquired, another transaction dressed up as matrimony. I need time to consider, Olivia said, though she already knew she would refuse. She would rather starve in the streets than bind herself to another owner. Thatcher's expression hardened. You have until tomorrow evening, Mrs. Ramsey. I will return then for your answer. I suggest you think very carefully about your limited prospects. After he left, Olivia sat alone in the silent house, her mind racing. She could not marry Thatcher. She simply could not. But what were her alternatives? She could try to find work, but respectable jobs for women in Challies were scarce and poorly paid. She could attempt to travel elsewhere, but she had no money for passage and no destination in mind. She could throw herself on the mercy of the church, but charity only stretched so far. For the first time since Marcus's death, Olivia felt tears prick her eyes. She had thought his death would be her liberation, but instead, she had simply traded one cage for another. The bitter irony was not lost on her. That night she barely slept, tossing and turning as she tried to formulate a plan. By dawn, she had made her decision. She would sell everything she could, pay off what debts she could, and then leave Challies with whatever remained. It would not be much, but it would be something. She would find work somewhere somehow. She would survive on her own terms, even if those terms were harsh. She spent the morning taking inventory of the household goods. There was not much of value. Marcus had sold off anything worth selling to fund his vices. She had her clothes, some kitchen implements, a few pieces of furniture. It would not fetch much at auction, but every dollar would help. As she was sorting through a trunk of linens, there was a knock at the door. Olivia's heart sank, thinking Thatcher had returned early to pressure her further. But when she opened the door, she found a tall stranger standing on her porch. He was a cowboy. That much was immediately clear from his worn leather chaps, dusty boots, and the hat he held respectfully in his hands. He was perhaps 26 or 27, with sun-bronzed skin, dark hair that needed cutting, and striking blue eyes that regarded her with a directness that was neither aggressive nor disrespectful. There was a quiet confidence about him, a self-possession that she had rarely encountered in men. "Mrs. Ramsey?" he asked, his voice a pleasant baritone with a slight drawl that suggested origins further south. "Yes, my name is Nathan Vance. I worked for your husband on occasion, helping with the horses. He owed me wages for 3 weeks of work. I heard about his passing, and I wanted to express my condolences, but I also need to discuss the matter of payment." Of course. Another creditor. Olivia felt a hysterical laugh bubble up in her throat but suppressed it. "I am afraid Mr. Ramsey died with considerable debts, Mr. Vance. I have nothing with which to pay you. I am sorry." Nathan studied her for a long moment, and Olivia had the unsettling sensation that he was seeing far more than she intended to reveal. There was something perceptive in his gaze, something that made her want to both flee and confide in him simultaneously. "How much did he owe you?" she asked, though it hardly mattered. $45. It was a substantial sum for a working man, likely representing weeks of labor. Guilt twisted in Olivia's stomach. Nathan Vance had worked in good faith and deserved his wages. I truly am sorry, Mr. Vance. If I had the means to pay you, I would. As it stands, I am in a rather desperate situation myself. I heard Thatcher was here yesterday. I heard what he proposed. Olivia stiffened. News travels quickly. In a town this size, it does. Nathan paused, then said carefully, "If you do not mind my saying so, Mrs. Ramsey, marrying Vernon Thatcher would be a mistake. He is not a good man. As opposed to my late husband, who was a paragon of virtue." The bitterness in her voice surprised even her. Nathan's expression softened slightly. "I only worked for Marcus Ramsey briefly, but it was long enough to take his measure. I am sorry for what you endured." The unexpected kindness nearly undid her. Olivia blinked rapidly, determined not to cry in front of this stranger. "I am not marrying Mr. Thatcher," she said firmly. "I have decided to sell what I can and leave Challies. To go where? I have not decided yet. Anywhere but here." "That is a dangerous proposition for a woman traveling alone." "I am aware of the risks, Mr. Vance, but my options are limited." Nathan was silent for a moment, turning his hat in his hands. Then he said something that shocked her completely. "I have a proposition for you, Mrs. Ramsey, and I ask that you hear me out before you refuse. I own a small ranch about 15 miles north of here. It is not much, just 160 acres with a modest house and a barn, but it is mine free and clear. I run cattle and break horses for sale. It is hard work and I manage alone, but I have been thinking lately that I could use help. A partner, so to speak." "I do not understand what you are suggesting, Mr. Vance." "I am suggesting a business arrangement. You would come to the ranch as my wife in name, but it would be a partnership, not a traditional marriage. You would have your own room, your own space, your own autonomy. In exchange for helping with the household tasks, cooking, tending the garden, perhaps assisting with the bookkeeping, you would have a home and security. No one would control you or dictate to you. You would be a full partner in the enterprise with equal say in decisions. And if at any point you wanted to leave, you would be free to do so." Olivia stared at him, certain she had misheard. "You are proposing marriage." "I am proposing a partnership that looks like marriage to the outside world. There is a difference. But why? You do not know me. I could be a terrible cook or completely incompetent at ranch work." Nathan smiled slightly, and it transformed his serious face. "I am not overly particular about cooking, and I can teach you what you need to know about ranch work. As for why, let us just say I understand what it is like to feel trapped by circumstances. I am offering you a way out, Mrs. Ramsey. No strings attached, no expectations beyond basic partnership. You would be free in a way you have never been free before." It was too good to be true. Men did not make such offers without ulterior motives. And yet, as Olivia looked into Nathan Vance's steady blue eyes, she saw nothing but sincerity. There was no predatory gleam, no sense of ownership or entitlement, just a straightforward offer from one person in need to another. "I do not understand what you would gain from this arrangement," she said slowly. "Help with the ranch, companionship without the complications of courtship, and perhaps the satisfaction of helping someone who needs it. I will not lie to you, Mrs. Ramsey. My life is lonely. It would be pleasant to have someone to talk to in the evenings, to share meals with, to work alongside. But I have no interest in owning another person or forcing myself where I am not wanted. If you agreed to this arrangement, you would be my partner, not my property." The word partner resonated with something deep inside Olivia. She had never been anyone's partner. She had been a daughter, then a wife, both roles defined by subservience and obedience. The idea of being a partner, an equal, was so foreign as to be almost incomprehensible. "Mr. Vance, I appreciate your offer, but I must ask directly. What would you expect from me in terms of wifely duties? She felt her cheeks burn, but she needed to know. Nathan met her eyes without flinching. I would expect nothing of that nature unless you initiated it, which I suspect you would not. I am capable of managing my own needs, Mrs. Ramsey. I am not proposing this arrangement to gain access to your body. I am proposing it because I genuinely believe we could both benefit from a practical partnership. This is highly irregular. I suppose it is. But these are irregular times and you are in an irregular situation. Sometimes irregular solutions are the most sensible ones. Olivia's mind raced. She could refuse and continue with her original plan, leaving Challies with next to nothing and facing an uncertain future alone. She could accept Thatcher's proposal and resign herself to another marriage of ownership and control. Or she could take a chance on this stranger and his unlikely offer. It was the word partner that decided her. Even if Nathan Vance was not entirely honest about his motives, even if the arrangement proved difficult, she would at least have a chance at something resembling autonomy. And if he was honest, if he truly meant what he said, then she would have something she had never dared dream of: freedom within security, independence within community. If I agreed, she said carefully, how would this work practically? When would we marry? How would we explain the haste? We could marry within a few days. As for explaining it, we tell the truth, more or less. You are a new widow in need of security, and I am a rancher in need of a wife. No one will find that particularly remarkable. Frontier marriages often happen quickly out of necessity. And the sleeping arrangements. You mentioned I would have my own room. The house has 2 bedrooms. I use one, you would use the other. The door has a lock, and I will give you the only key. Your space would be entirely your own. What about finances? Would I have access to money? We would have a shared account for ranch expenses, and you would have access to it. Any profit from the ranch would be divided equally between us. I keep clear books, and you would be welcome to review them at any time. What if I wanted to leave? You said I would be free to go. Then you would take half of whatever we had built together and leave with my blessing. I would not stop you or pursue you. You would be free and clear. It was almost too much to believe. Olivia searched his face for any sign of deception, but found none. Nathan Vance appeared to be exactly what he claimed, a straightforward man making a practical proposal. I need time to think, she said finally. Of course. When is Thatcher expecting your answer? Tomorrow evening. Then take until tomorrow morning. If you decide to accept my proposal, meet me at the church at 10 o'clock. We can speak with Reverend Harper and arrange the ceremony. If you do not come, I will understand, and I will not trouble you further. After Nathan left, Olivia sat in the parlor for a long time, her thoughts churning. She tried to think through every possible angle, every potential pitfall. What if Nathan was lying? What if he was simply more subtle than Marcus or Thatcher, planning to reveal his true nature only after she was isolated on his ranch? What if he was dangerous? But what if he was not? What if he truly meant what he said? What if this was her one chance at a life where she was more than property? That evening, Vernon Thatcher returned, earlier than promised. Olivia received him coldly, standing rather than sitting, making it clear he was not welcome. "I've come for your answer, Mrs. Ramsey," he said without preamble. "I have not had the time you promised me," she replied. "I do not think you need more time. Your situation is quite clear. I am offering you security and respectability. What more could you want?" "Respect," Olivia said quietly. "I want respect, Mr. Thatcher, and you have shown me none." His face darkened. "You are in no position to make demands, Mrs. Ramsey. I am offering you a lifeline. If you refuse it, you will sink, and I will not extend the offer again." "Then I suppose I will sink, because my answer is no." Thatcher took a step toward her, and Olivia instinctively backed away. His expression had turned ugly, all pretense of civility dropped. "You foolish woman! You think anyone else will want you? You are penniless. You are not a young girl anymore, and you have the taint of Marcus Ramsey's failure on you. You should be grateful I am willing to take you on." "Get out of my house," Olivia said, her voice shaking but firm. "Get out now, or I will scream and the neighbors will come." For a moment she thought he might force the issue, but then he stepped back, his lip curling. "You will regret this. When you are starving in the street, remember that you brought it on yourself." He left, slamming the door behind him. Olivia sank into a chair, her legs suddenly weak. The confrontation had crystallized everything in her mind. She could not, would not, submit to another man who viewed her as less than human. She would take her chances with Nathan Vance. The next morning, she dressed carefully in her best dress, a simple blue cotton that Marcus had permitted because it was appropriately modest. She packed a small trunk with her few belongings, left the key to the house on the kitchen table for the creditors to find, and walked through the quiet streets of Challies to the church. Nathan was already there, waiting on the steps. He had cleaned up, she noticed, his hair neatly combed, his face freshly shaved. He wore a clean shirt and a vest, clearly his best clothes. When he saw her, relief flashed across his face. "I was not certain you would come," he admitted. "I was not certain myself until this morning," Olivia replied honestly. "But I have decided to accept your proposal, Mr. Vance. I hope we are both making the right decision." "I believe we are, Mrs. Ramsey. Shall we?" They found Reverend Harper in his study, and Nathan explained their situation plainly. The Reverend, a kind-faced man in his 50s, listened with a thoughtful expression. "This is quite sudden," he observed. "Mrs. Ramsey, your husband has been dead only 3 days." "I am aware of that, Reverend, but my circumstances require swift action. Mr. Vance has made me a generous offer, and I have accepted it." "You are certain you are not being coerced?" Olivia almost laughed at the irony. "I am quite certain, Reverend. This is my choice, freely made." The Reverend studied them both, then nodded slowly. "Very well. If you are both certain, I will perform the ceremony. Do you have witnesses?" Nathan had arranged for 2 ranch hands he knew to serve as witnesses. Within the hour, Olivia Ramsey became Olivia Vance in a brief, simple ceremony. There were no flowers, no celebration, no romance. It was a transaction, but unlike her first marriage, it was a transaction she had entered into with full agency and understanding. Afterward, Nathan loaded her trunk into his wagon, helped her up onto the seat beside him, and they began the journey north to his ranch. The ride was quiet at first, both of them adjusting to the strangeness of their new situation. "Tell me about the ranch," Olivia said finally, needing to break the silence. Nathan seemed grateful for the question. "It is called the Triple Creek Ranch because it sits at the junction of 3 small creeks. Good water, which is worth more than gold in this country. I have about 50 head of cattle at the moment, and I am building up a horse herd. I catch wild horses, break them, train them, and sell them. It is steady income, and I enjoy the work." "How long have you owned it?" "4 years. I worked on a cattle drive when I was 18, saved every penny I could, and bought the land when I was 22. I have been building it up slowly but surely ever since." "Where are you from originally?" "Texas. My father was a rancher there, but he lost everything after the war. He drank himself to death shortly after. My mother passed when I was young. I had nothing keeping me in Texas, so I came north looking for new opportunities." There was pain in his voice when he spoke of his father, a pain Olivia understood intimately. "I am sorry for your losses," she said softly. "And I am sorry for yours, though I suspect your marriage was more burden than blessing." You would be correct in that assessment. Olivia hesitated, then added, Marcus was not a kind man. He believed a wife was property to be controlled and punished as he saw fit. That is not what marriage should be, Nathan said firmly. My parents' marriage was not perfect, but my father respected my mother. He listened to her counsel, valued her opinions, shared responsibilities with her. That is what partnership looks like. It is a foreign concept to me, Olivia admitted. I have never been anyone's partner. Then we will learn together how to be good partners to each other. The ranch, when they reached it, was more substantial than Olivia had expected. The house was small but well built, a sturdy log structure with a stone chimney and a covered porch. The barn was larger than the house, which made sense for a working ranch. There were several corrals, a chicken coop, and a large garden plot that had been recently weeded. It is not much, Nathan said, a note of uncertainty in his voice. But it is home. It is more than I expected, Olivia said honestly. It is lovely. Nathan helped her down from the wagon and carried her trunk inside. The interior of the house was Spartan but clean. There was a main room that served as kitchen and living space, with a fireplace at one end and a cast iron stove at the other. 2 doors led off the main room to what she assumed were the bedrooms. This is your room, Nathan said, opening the door on the right. Inside was a simple bedroom with a bed, a dresser, a small table with a lamp and a chair. A window looked out over the garden. It is not fancy, but it is clean and private. Here is the key to the door. It is the only one that exists. He handed her a small iron key, and Olivia closed her fingers around it, feeling the weight of its significance. A locked door, a private space, autonomy over her own body and person. It was more than she had ever had. Thank you, she said, her voice thick with emotion. I will give you time to settle in. I need to see to the horses. When you are ready, we can discuss the division of responsibilities and how we will manage things day to day. True to his word, Nathan left her alone. Olivia unpacked her few belongings, hanging her dresses in the small wardrobe and arranging her personal items on the dresser. When she was finished, she sat on the bed and simply breathed, letting the reality of her situation sink in. She was married again. But this marriage already felt different. Nathan had given her a key, had respected her space, had spoken to her as an equal. Could it be possible that he truly meant everything he had said? Or was this simply an elaborate prelude to the same controlling behavior she had experienced before? Only time would tell. But for now, for this moment, Olivia allowed herself to feel something she had not felt in years: hope. That evening, they sat down together to discuss the practical details of their arrangement. Nathan had prepared a simple meal of beans, bacon, and cornbread, and they ate at the rough wooden table in the main room. I am not a very good cook, Nathan admitted. Edible but not inspired. I can cook, Olivia said. It was one of the few things Marcus allowed me to do with any independence, provided the meals met his standards. You can cook whatever you like here. I am not particular. If you want to experiment or try new things, feel free. The worst that can happen is we have a bad meal and learn for next time. The casual acceptance of potential failure was startling to Olivia. Marcus would have punished her severely for serving a substandard meal. I will do my best, she said carefully. I am sure you will. Now, as for other responsibilities, I would appreciate your help with the garden, the chickens, and the general household tasks. I will handle the livestock, the heavy labor, and the horse breaking. But I want you to understand that these are not rigid assignments. If you want to learn about the livestock or the horses, I am happy to teach you. If I need to help with household tasks, I am willing to do so. Partnership means flexibility and mutual support. What about finances? You mentioned a shared account. Nathan pulled out a ledger from a shelf and opened it on the table. These are the ranch books. Every expense, every bit of income, all recorded. As you can see, we are not wealthy, but we are stable. I make enough to cover our needs with a bit left over to save or reinvest in the ranch. Half of everything here is yours now, Olivia. You have equal say in how money is spent and saved. Olivia stared at the ledger, at the neat columns of figures in Nathan's precise handwriting. I have never had control over money before. Marcus managed everything. Then you will learn. I will teach you what you need to know. It is not complicated, just a matter of tracking what comes in and what goes out. They spent the next hour going over the books, with Nathan patiently explaining his system. Olivia found herself fascinated by the practical details of running a ranch, the way every decision had financial implications, the constant balancing of risk and reward. You have a good head for numbers, Nathan observed. You picked that up quickly. I enjoy it, Olivia said, surprised to realize it was true. I like the logic of it, the way everything has to balance. Then perhaps you could take over the bookkeeping. I find it tedious, but it is necessary work. If you enjoyed it, that would be one less task on my plate. I would be happy to do that. The idea of being responsible for something so important to the ranch's success was both daunting and exhilarating. As the evening wore on, they talked about other aspects of their partnership. Nathan explained the rhythms of ranch life, the seasonal tasks, the challenges they would face. Olivia shared her skills and limitations, her fears and hopes. It was the most honest conversation she had ever had with a man, and she found herself gradually relaxing, her initial wariness fading. I have one more thing I need to make clear, Nathan said as they finished their discussion. If I ever make you uncomfortable, if I ever cross a line or make you feel unsafe, I want you to tell me immediately. I cannot correct behavior I am not aware of, and I would rather know I have made a mistake than have you suffer in silence. You want me to correct you, Olivia said, disbelieving. I want you to hold me accountable to the partnership I promised you. If I fail to live up to my word, you have every right to call me out on it. It was such a radical concept that Olivia struggled to process it. Hold a man accountable. Challenge him when he was wrong. In her experience, such behavior led only to swift and painful consequences. I will try, she said carefully. But you must understand that goes against everything I have been taught about how a wife should behave. You are not just a wife, Olivia. You are my partner, and partners are honest with each other even when it is difficult. That night, Olivia lay in her bed in her locked room, staring at the ceiling and processing the extraordinary events of the day. She had gone from widow to wife, from homeless to homeowner, from powerless to partner. It was almost too much change to comprehend. She wanted to trust Nathan, wanted to believe that this arrangement would be everything he promised. But years of living with Marcus had taught her to be cautious, to watch for warning signs, to protect herself. She would give Nathan a chance, but she would also stay vigilant. In the next room, Nathan lay awake as well, wondering if he had made the right decision. He had spoken the truth to Olivia about his motives, but he had not told her everything. He had not told her that from the moment he saw her standing in her doorway, exhaustion and determination warring on her face, he had felt something shift in his chest. He had not told her that he found her beautiful, or that he admired her courage in refusing Thatcher's proposal. He had not told her that he hoped someday their partnership might grow into something more, but those were his feelings to manage, not burdens to place on her shoulders. She needed time and space to heal from the wounds Marcus had inflicted. If all she ever wanted from Nathan was partnership and respect, then that is what he would give her. Anything more would have to come from her, in her own time if it came at all. The first weeks of their arrangement passed in a flurry of activity and adjustment. Olivia threw herself into her new responsibilities with a determination that both impressed and concerned Nathan. She rose before dawn to prepare breakfast, spent her days tending the garden, caring for the chickens, managing the household, and keeping the books. She worked herself to exhaustion, falling into bed each night too tired to think. Nathan finally addressed it one evening about 3 weeks after their wedding. They had finished supper, and Olivia was already preparing to tackle the mending pile. "Sit down for a moment," Nathan said gently. "Please." Olivia hesitated, then set down the mending and sat. "Is something wrong? I want to talk about your work schedule. You are pushing yourself too hard." "I am simply doing my part," Olivia protested. "You are doing more than your part. You are working from dawn until late into the night. That is not sustainable, and it is not what I intended when I proposed this partnership. But there is so much to do, and I want to prove that I am pulling my weight." "Olivia, you do not need to prove anything to me. You are already contributing tremendously. But a partnership means balance. We both work hard and we both rest. I do not expect you to run yourself into the ground." "I do not know how else to be," Olivia admitted quietly. "With Marcus, if I was not constantly busy, he would accuse me of laziness and punish me for it. I am afraid that if I rest, you will think I am taking advantage of your generosity." Nathan's expression softened with understanding. "I am not Marcus. I will never punish you for resting or for taking time for yourself. In fact, I insist on it. Starting tomorrow after breakfast and the morning chores, I want you to take at least 2 hours for yourself. Read, walk, do whatever you enjoy. The mending and other tasks can wait. But what will you think of me? I will think you are a sensible woman who understands the importance of rest and balance." It took several more days before Olivia could bring herself to actually take the time Nathan had mandated. The guilt was overwhelming at first, the feeling that she was shirking her duties. But gradually, she began to relax into the rhythm Nathan had suggested. She discovered that she enjoyed walking along the creeks, watching the play of sunlight on water. She found pleasure in reading the few books Nathan owned, losing herself in stories of far-off places. As she learned to trust that Nathan truly meant what he said, she began to lower her guard slightly. She started to speak more freely at meals, sharing observations about the ranch or asking questions about his work. Nathan seemed to genuinely enjoy these conversations, often elaborating on topics or asking her opinions in return. One afternoon, about 6 weeks into their marriage, Olivia was in the garden when she heard commotion from the corrals. Curious, she made her way over and saw Nathan working with a wild horse he had caught the previous week. The animal was a magnificent buckskin mare, all fire and spirit, fighting the rope and the confinement with every ounce of her strength. Olivia watched, fascinated, as Nathan moved around the horse with patient confidence. He did not fight her or try to dominate her through force. Instead, he seemed to be engaging in a conversation, responding to her movements, waiting for her to make choices, rewarding small moments of cooperation. "You have to respect what they are," Nathan said, noticing Olivia watching. "A wild horse is not broken by force. That just creates a fearful, unpredictable animal. You have to earn their trust, show them that working with you is better than fighting you. How long does it take? Depends on the horse. This one is smart and stubborn, so probably a few weeks, but she will be worth it. Once she trusts me, she will be loyal and responsive. The best horses are the ones who choose to partner with you." The parallel was not lost on Olivia. Nathan was describing exactly the approach he had taken with her, the patient respect, the refusal to force or dominate, the understanding that partnership was better than ownership. "Can I help?" she asked impulsively. Nathan looked surprised but pleased. "Are you sure? It can be dangerous." "I would like to learn." "All right, come into the corral slowly. No sudden movements." For the next hour, Nathan taught Olivia the basics of working with a wild horse. She learned to read the animal's body language, to understand the subtle communications in the flick of an ear or the position of the tail. She learned to be patient, to wait, to reward small steps forward. "You are good at this," Nathan said as they finally left the corral. "You have gentle hands and good instincts." "Thank you. I enjoyed it. May I help again?" "I would like that." It became a regular part of their routine. In the late afternoons, Olivia would join Nathan in working with the horses. She discovered she had a real gift for it, a natural empathy that allowed her to connect with even the most difficult animals. Nathan was generous with his praise and patient with her mistakes, and Olivia found herself looking forward to these sessions more than anything else in her day. It was during one of these sessions, about 2 months into their marriage, that something shifted between them. They were working together to halter the buckskin mare, who had finally begun to accept their presence. Olivia was holding the mare steady, murmuring soft words of encouragement, while Nathan carefully slipped the halter over her head. "Perfect," Nathan said softly. "You are doing perfectly, Olivia." She looked up at him, and their eyes met over the horse's neck. For a moment the world seemed to still. Olivia saw in Nathan's eyes something she had never seen in a man's gaze before, warmth and admiration and something deeper, something that made her breath catch. Then the moment passed. The mare shifted, breaking the spell, and they returned to their work. But something had changed. Olivia was acutely aware of Nathan's proximity, the brush of his hand against hers as they worked, the sound of his voice, the way the fading sunlight caught in his dark hair. That night, she lay in bed and confronted the truth she had been avoiding. She was developing feelings for Nathan Vance. Real feelings, beyond gratitude or respect. She was attracted to him, drawn to his quiet strength and his gentle humor, his patience and his integrity. The realization was both thrilling and terrifying. What did she do with these feelings? Nathan had made it clear their marriage was one of convenience, that he expected nothing from her beyond partnership. He had been true to his word in every way. He had never pushed her, never made inappropriate advances, never even hinted that he wanted more than the arrangement they had agreed upon. If she told him how she felt, she risked ruining the comfortable dynamic they had established. If her feelings were not reciprocated, she would feel foolish and exposed. And yet, keeping them secret felt dishonest, a violation of the partnership they had built. Olivia decided to wait, to watch, to see if Nathan showed any signs of feeling the same way. She would not burden him with her emotions unless she had reason to believe they might be welcomed. But Nathan was making the same calculation. He had felt the shift between them in the corral, had seen something in Olivia's eyes that gave him hope. But he could not be sure, and he would not risk frightening her or making her uncomfortable. He had promised her safety and autonomy, and he would not break that promise by imposing his feelings on her. So they continued their careful dance, both aware of the growing attraction between them, neither willing to speak of it first. They worked together during the day, ate meals together, talked long into the evenings about everything and nothing. The partnership deepened, the comfort between them growing, but the unspoken feelings hung in the air like a gathering storm. The breaking point came in early October. Nathan had traveled to a neighboring ranch to look at some cattle, planning to be gone overnight. It was the first time Olivia had been alone at the ranch, and she found the solitude surprisingly lonely. She had grown so accustomed to Nathan's presence, to to the sound of his voice and his footsteps, that the house felt empty without him. She was washing dishes after a solitary supper when she heard horses approaching. Instantly alert, she dried her hands and went to the window. 3 men were riding into the yard, and her heart sank when she recognized the one in the lead, Vernon Thatcher. Olivia's mind raced. Nathan was not here. She was alone, and Thatcher had brought 2 other men with him. Nothing good could come of this visit. She considered barricading herself in her room, but that would only delay the inevitable. Instead, she took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and went to the door. She opened it but stood in the doorway, blocking entry to the house. "Mr. Thatcher, this is unexpected. Mrs. Vance," Thatcher said, his voice dripping with false courtesy as he dismounted. "Or should I still call you Mrs. Ramsey? This hasty marriage to Nathan Vance was quite surprising. My name is Vance, and I will thank you to use it. What do you want?" "I have come to collect on Marcus Ramsey's debts." "As his widow, you inherited those obligations. The fact that you have since remarried does not erase them. I have nothing with which to pay you, as you well know. But your new husband does. This ranch, for instance, would more than cover what is owed. This ranch belongs to Nathan. It has nothing to do with Marcus's debts. Legally, what is yours is now Nathan's, and what was Marcus's is now yours. I have a legitimate claim, Mrs. Vance, and I intend to collect. Where is your husband? He is not here, and you are trespassing. I will ask you to leave." Thatcher's expression hardened. "I do not think you are in a position to make demands. You see, I have done some research. Nathan Vance's claim to this land is not as secure as he might think. There are irregularities in the deed, questions about the survey. If I were to challenge his ownership in court, he would likely lose everything. Unless, of course, we can come to an arrangement." "What kind of arrangement?" Olivia asked, though she already knew and dreaded the answer. "I am still willing to marry you, Mrs. Vance. If you would dissolve this sham marriage and accept my proposal, I would forgive all of Marcus's debts and drop any challenge to Vance's land claim. You could save your husband's ranch and secure your own future. All you have to do is agree. That is blackmail. That is business. You have until tomorrow evening to decide. If you refuse, I will see you both ruined." He remounted his horse, tipped his hat in a mocking salute, and rode off with his companions. Olivia stood in the doorway, shaking with anger and fear. How dare he come here and threaten her, threaten Nathan? And how much truth was there to his claims about the land deed? She spent a sleepless night wrestling with the situation. Nathan had given her everything, asked for nothing in return except partnership and honest effort. She could not allow Thatcher to destroy him. But the thought of submitting to Thatcher, of becoming his property after finally experiencing freedom, was unbearable. By dawn, she had made a decision. She would go to Thatcher and tell him she would agree to his terms, but only if he provided written, legally binding proof that all debts were forgiven and all claims against Nathan's land dropped. Then, before he could actually enforce the marriage arrangement, she would flee. She would disappear, and Thatcher would have no way to find her. Nathan would be safe, and she would be free, even if she was alone. It was not a perfect plan, but it was the best she could devise. Nathan returned mid-morning, and Olivia's heart clenched at the sight of him. He looked tired from the journey but smiled when he saw her. "I miss this place," he said as he dismounted. "And I missed you." The casual admission made Olivia's eyes sting with tears. She blinked them back furiously. "How was your trip? Productive. I found some good cattle at a fair price. We can pick them up next month." He studied her face, his smile fading. "What is wrong? Something happened." There was no point in lying. Olivia told him everything about Thatcher's visit, his threats, his proposal. Nathan's expression grew darker with each word. He has no legitimate claim to this ranch, Nathan said flatly. My deed is sound. I had a lawyer review it when I purchased the land. But what if he is right about the irregularities? What if he challenges you in court and wins? Then I would fight him. But I will not let him blackmail us, Olivia. You are not going anywhere near that man. Nathan, this is your home, your livelihood. I cannot let him destroy you because of my late husband's debts. Those are not your debts. You do not owe him anything. But if there is a chance he could take the ranch, I have to do something. Nathan took her by the shoulders, gentle but firm. Look at me, Olivia. You are not responsible for Marcus's failures, and you are not obligated to sacrifice yourself to fix them. We will find another way. What other way is there? I do not know yet, but we will figure it out together. That is what partners do. Olivia wanted to believe him, but the fear was overwhelming. She had finally found something good, something worth protecting, and the thought of losing it to Thatcher's machinations was more than she could bear. That afternoon, Nathan rode into Challies to consult with a lawyer he knew, leaving Olivia strict instructions not to leave the ranch or speak to Thatcher if he returned. Olivia agreed, though she had not abandoned her plan to sacrifice herself if necessary. But as she waited for Nathan's return, she found herself confronting her true motivations. Was she really willing to give up Nathan to save the ranch? Or was she falling back into old patterns, assuming that her value lay only in what she could provide or sacrifice? Was she denying herself happiness and freedom out of genuine necessity, or out of old, deeply ingrained habits of self-negation? The question haunted her throughout the long afternoon. By the time Nathan returned as the sun was setting, Olivia had reached a new understanding. She was not Marcus's property, not Thatcher's bargaining chip, and not even Nathan's problem to solve. She was her own person, with her own agency and her own right to fight for what she wanted. The lawyer confirmed what I thought, Nathan said as he dismounted. Thatcher's claims are baseless. The deed is sound, the survey is accurate, and he has no legal standing to challenge my ownership. As for Marcus's debts, they died with Marcus. You are not legally liable for them, especially not after remarrying. Relief flooded through Olivia. So we are safe from legal action, yes. But Thatcher is not a man who accepts defeat gracefully. We should be cautious. What do you think he will do? I do not know, but we will face it together, whatever it is. That evening, as they ate supper, Olivia found herself studying Nathan across the table. He had defended her without hesitation, had refused to even consider trading her safety for his own security. He treated her as a partner in truth, not just in word, and she was tired of hiding how she felt about him. Nathan, she said, setting down her fork, I need to tell you something. He looked up, attentive. All right. When you proposed this arrangement, you said it would be a partnership without the complications of a traditional marriage. You promised me autonomy and space, and you have kept that promise in every way. You have been nothing but respectful and kind. I sense a but coming, Nathan said carefully. Not a but, a confession. These past months, working with you, living with you, learning to trust you, I have developed feelings that go beyond partnership or gratitude. I find myself thinking about you constantly. I look forward to our time together. I miss you when you are gone. I am, quite simply, falling in love with you. Nathan stared at her, his expression unreadable. The silence stretched out, and Olivia began to regret her honesty. She had miscalculated, had ruined everything by admitting feelings he did not reciprocate. I am sorry, she said, starting to rise. I should not have said anything. Please forget I mentioned it. Olivia, sit down. Nathan's voice was rough with emotion. Please. She sat, her cheeks burning. Do you remember when I asked you to hold me accountable, to tell me if I ever made you uncomfortable? Nathan asked. Yes. I am going to need you to do that now, because I am about to say something that might change everything between us, and I need to know if it is welcome or if I am crossing a line." Olivia's heart began to pound. "Say it. I have been in love with you since the day I met you. When I proposed our arrangement, I meant every word about partnership and respect. But I also hoped, secretly, that perhaps someday you might come to care for me as more than just a business partner. Every day we have spent together has only deepened my feelings. You are brilliant and brave and beautiful, and I am constantly amazed by your strength. But I promised you autonomy, and I will not go back on that promise. If you want this marriage to remain strictly a partnership, I will respect that. But if you are saying what I hope you are saying, if you truly have feelings for me, then I would very much like our partnership to become something more." Joy, pure and unrestrained, flooded through Olivia. "Are you saying you love me?" "I am saying I am desperately in love with you and have been for months." They stared at each other across the table, both hardly daring to believe what was happening. Then Olivia stood, walked around the table, and held out her hand to Nathan. He took it, rising to his feet, and for a moment they simply stood there, fingers intertwined. Then Nathan raised his free hand and gently cupped her cheek. "May I kiss you?" he asked softly. In answer, Olivia rose on her toes and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was tentative at first, both of them careful, but it quickly deepened as months of suppressed longing found expression. Nathan's arms came around her, drawing her close but not constraining, and Olivia melted into his embrace. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Nathan rested his forehead against hers. "I have wanted to do that for so long," he murmured. "So have I," Olivia admitted. "But I was afraid you did not feel the same way, afraid of ruining what we had built." "We have not ruined anything. We have just made it better." That night, for the first time, they sat together on the porch, Nathan's arm around Olivia's shoulders, her head resting against his chest. They talked about everything and nothing, their words interspersed with kisses and soft laughter. When it grew late, Nathan walked Olivia to her bedroom door. "I want you to know that nothing has to change physically if you are not ready," he said. "We can take this as slowly as you need." Olivia appreciated his consideration, but she found that she wanted more. "What if I am ready?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Nathan's eyes darkened with desire, but he remained cautious. "Are you certain?" "There is no pressure, Olivia. We have all the time in the world, I am certain. With Marcus, intimacy was something done to me, something I endured. I want to know what it is like when it is a choice, when it is with someone I love and who loves me." Nathan took her hand and brought it to his lips. "Then I will do everything in my power to make sure you enjoy it." What followed was a revelation for Olivia. Nathan was patient and gentle, constantly checking in with her, making sure she was comfortable and willing. For the first time in her life, Olivia experienced physical intimacy as something mutual and pleasurable, an expression of love rather than an assertion of ownership. When it was over, she lay in Nathan's arms, tears streaming down her face. "Did I hurt you?" Nathan asked, alarmed. "No," Olivia said, laughing through her tears. "I just never knew it could be like that. I never knew I could feel that way." Nathan held her close, pressing kisses to her hair. "You deserve to feel that way always. You deserve love and respect and pleasure. You deserve everything good, Olivia." They fell asleep tangled together, and when Olivia woke in the morning to find Nathan still beside her, still holding her, she felt a contentment she had never imagined possible. This was what partnership looked like. This was what love felt like, and it was better than anything she had dared dream. The next few weeks were blissful. Nathan and Olivia settled into their new dynamic with ease, their partnership deepening into a genuine marriage in every sense. They worked together during the day, talked and laughed during the evenings, and fell into bed together at night. Olivia blossomed under Nathan's love and attention, becoming more confident and more fully herself with each passing day. They heard nothing more from Vernon Thatcher, and Olivia began to hope that the threat had passed. But she should have known better. It was late October when the trouble came. Nathan had gone into Challies for supplies, and Olivia was alone at the ranch. She was in the garden, harvesting the last of the vegetables before the first hard freeze, when she heard riders approaching. Her heart sank when she saw Thatcher and the same two men from his previous visit. This time, however, they were not alone. They had brought the local sheriff with them. "Mrs. Vance," the sheriff said, tipping his hat. He was an older man named Tom Garrett who had always struck Olivia as fair-minded. "I am sorry to trouble you, but Mr. Thatcher has filed a complaint. He claims that you and your husband are in possession of property that rightfully belongs to him, part of Marcus Ramsey's estate. He has a court order requiring us to inventory the contents of the house." "This ranch has nothing to do with Marcus Ramsey," Olivia said firmly. "It belonged to my husband Nathan before I ever married him." "Be that as it may, madam, I have to enforce the court order. May we come in?" Olivia had no choice but to allow them inside. She watched, furious and helpless, as Thatcher and his men went through the house, ostensibly looking for items that had belonged to Marcus. They found nothing, of course, because there was nothing to find. Everything in the house belonged to Nathan or had been acquired after Olivia's marriage to him. "This is harassment," Olivia said to Sheriff Garrett. "He is using the law to intimidate us." "I tend to agree with you, Mrs. Vance," the sheriff said quietly, "but my hands are tied. He has a court order." As Thatcher and his men were finally preparing to leave, one of them accidentally knocked over a lamp, which shattered on the floor. The oil spread rapidly, and before anyone could react, sparks from the fireplace ignited it. Flames erupted with terrifying speed. Everyone scrambled for the door, and Olivia barely made it out before the fire spread to the curtains and began climbing the walls. "Do something," she screamed at the sheriff. "We need water." "The creek," Sheriff Garrett shouted, but it was too late. The house was old and dry, and the fire consumed it hungrily. Within minutes, it was fully engulfed. Olivia stood watching her home burn, tears streaming down her face. Everything she and Nathan had built together, all their belongings, all their security, going up in smoke. Thatcher stood watching with a satisfied expression that told Olivia all she needed to know. This had been no accident. He had orchestrated this, had destroyed their home out of spite because she had refused him. Nathan arrived to find the house a smoking ruin and Olivia sitting on the ground nearby, wrapped in a blanket someone had provided, staring at the destruction with empty eyes. He leapt from the wagon and ran to her, pulling her into his arms. "Are you hurt?" he demanded. "No." "But Nathan, the house, everything, it is all gone." "I do not care about the house. I care about you. You are safe. That is all that matters." Sheriff Garrett approached them apologetically. "Mr. Vance, Mrs. Vance, I am so sorry. It was an accident, according to Mr. Thatcher's man. He claims the lamp was knocked over accidentally." "That is a lie," Olivia said fiercely. "He did it deliberately. This whole thing was a setup to destroy us." "Can you prove that, madam?" "No, but I know what I saw." "Without proof there is nothing I can do. I am truly sorry." Thatcher rode up on his horse, his expression one of false sympathy. "Such a tragedy, Mr. Vance. Perhaps now you will understand that you are out of your depth here. If you were to sell the land to me at a fair price, you could start fresh somewhere else." Nathan stood slowly, his body tense with barely controlled rage. "Get off my property. Now. This is no longer a friendly suggestion, Vance. I will have this land one way or another. I said get off my property. For a moment, Olivia thought Nathan might physically attack Thatcher, and part of her wanted him to. But Nathan held himself in check, his fists clenched at his sides. Thatcher finally rode away, and the sheriff followed shortly after, once it was clear there was nothing more to be done about the fire. A few neighbors who had seen the smoke arrived to offer assistance, and they helped Nathan salvage what little could be saved from the ruins. That night, Nathan and Olivia slept in the barn, huddled together for warmth under horse blankets. The loss of the house was devastating, but worse was the feeling of violation, the knowledge that someone had deliberately destroyed their home and would face no consequences for it. "What do we do now?" Olivia asked quietly. "We rebuild," Nathan said firmly. "We do not let him win. This land is ours, and we will build a new house on it. It will take time and money, but we will do it." "How? We lost everything." "Not everything. We have the land, the barn, the livestock, and most importantly, we have each other. The rest is just stuff, Olivia. It can be replaced. I am so sorry. This is all because of me, because I was married to Marcus. This is because Vernon Thatcher is a vindictive bully, nothing more. You did nothing wrong." But Olivia could not shake the guilt. If she had never married Nathan, if she had just left Challies as she originally planned, he would still have his home. He had given her everything, and she had brought him nothing but trouble. Over the next few days, as they made temporary arrangements to live in the barn and began planning the rebuilding effort, Olivia sank into a depression. She went through the motions of daily tasks, but felt hollow inside. Nathan tried to reassure her, but she could not let go of the belief that she was a curse on his life. It was about a week after the fire when Nathan finally confronted her directly. They were eating a simple supper of beans and bread, sitting on crates in the barn when he set down his plate and took her hands. "Talk to me," he said. "Tell me what is going on in your head." "I have ruined your life," Olivia said flatly. "You gave me everything and I brought you nothing but disaster." "That is not true. Is it not? Your house is gone. Your security is threatened, all because you married me. My house is gone because Vernon Thatcher is a criminal. That is not your fault. But if I had never been married to Marcus, if I did not have his debts hanging over me, Thatcher would have no reason to target you." Nathan was silent for a moment, then said quietly, "Do you remember the wild horses we work with? How we have to earn their trust, show them that partnership is better than independence? Yes. You are doing what those horses do when they are first caught. You are so used to being hurt, to being blamed for things that are not your fault, that you cannot accept that sometimes bad things just happen and it is no one's fault but the person who caused them. Thatcher is responsible for this, Olivia, not you, never you. But I feel so guilty." "I know you do, and I understand why. But you have to stop taking responsibility for other people's actions. Marcus was abusive because he chose to be abusive. Thatcher is vindictive because he chooses to be vindictive. Those are their choices, their failings. You are not responsible for managing or fixing or atoning for the behavior of every man who has wronged you." Olivia felt something crack inside her chest. Some hard shell of guilt and self-blame that had been there for so long she had forgotten. It was not a natural part of her. Tears began to flow, years of pent-up pain and shame finally finding release. Nathan pulled her into his arms and held her while she sobbed. "That is it," he murmured. "Let it out. Let it all out." When the storm of weeping finally subsided, Olivia felt lighter somehow, as though she had put down a burden she had been carrying for far too long. "I love you," she said, her voice hoarse. "I love you so much, and I am terrified of losing you. You are not going to lose me. We are partners, Olivia. We face things together, good and bad, and together we are strong enough to handle whatever Thatcher throws at us." The next morning, Nathan announced that he was going into Challies to speak with some people. He would not elaborate on his plans, but Olivia could see the determination in his eyes. She trusted him to do what was necessary. Nathan went first to the lawyer who had confirmed his deed was sound. "I need you to file a formal complaint against Vernon Thatcher for harassment and intimidation. I also want you to look into whether we can prove arson." The lawyer, a sharp-eyed man named James Holbrook, nodded thoughtfully. "The arson will be difficult to prove without witnesses willing to testify, but the harassment charge has merit. I can file the paperwork." "Do it. And do not worry about the fee. I will pay you as soon as I sell some horses." Next, Nathan went to the newspaper office and told the editor, a crusading journalist named Sarah Winters, the whole story of Thatcher's campaign against them. Sarah listened intently, taking notes. "This is exactly the kind of story I love to publish," she said. "Powerful men abusing the legal system to intimidate honest folks. Give me a few days to do some digging, and I will run a piece that will make Thatcher very uncomfortable." Finally, Nathan went to the saloon and quietly spread the word among the other ranchers and cowboys about what Thatcher had done. In a community where a man's reputation was everything, the court of public opinion could be just as powerful as a court of law. By the time Nathan returned to the ranch that evening, he had set several wheels in motion. But he knew it might not be enough. Thatcher had money and connections, and he was not above using both to get what he wanted. The article in the newspaper came out 3 days later, and it was everything Nathan had hoped for. Sarah Winters had done her research, uncovering a pattern of Thatcher using dubious legal tactics to acquire property from vulnerable people. The article stopped just short of accusing him of criminal behavior, but the implication was clear. Thatcher was not an upstanding businessman. He was a predator. The response from the community was immediate and overwhelmingly supportive of Nathan and Olivia. People who had been intimidated by Thatcher's wealth and influence found courage in numbers. Several other individuals came forward with their own stories of being victimized by him. When Thatcher next appeared in Challies, he found himself on the receiving end of cold stares and hostile muttering. The social ostracism was clearly affecting him, and Nathan allowed himself to hope that perhaps the tide had turned. But Thatcher was not finished yet. One evening in early November, Nathan and Olivia were in the barn when they heard the sound of many horses approaching. Nathan grabbed his rifle, and they emerged cautiously to find a group of about 15 men riding toward them. Olivia's heart sank, certain this was Thatcher bringing an armed force to drive them off the land. But as the riders drew closer, Nathan relaxed and lowered his rifle. "Those are neighbors," he said, surprised. "Ranchers from the area." The lead rider was a grizzled man named Jack Morrison, who owned a large spread about 10 miles west. He tipped his hat to Nathan and Olivia. "Vance, Mrs. Vance, we heard about your trouble with Thatcher and about the fire. We have come to help you rebuild." Nathan stared at him, stunned. "You want to help us rebuild?" "That is right. We have all brought tools and lumber. Some of the wives will be along tomorrow with food. We figure if we all work together, we can have you a new house up in a couple weeks. It won't be fancy, but it will be solid and warm." Tears sprang to Olivia's eyes. "Why would you do this for us? You barely know us." Jack shrugged. "Because it is the right thing to do, and because we are all tired of Vernon Thatcher thinking he can push folks around without consequences. Sometimes the best way to fight a bully is to show them that the people they are bullying have friends." Over the next 2 weeks, the barn raising, or rather house raising, became a community event. Men from all over the area came to help with construction. Women brought food and helped Olivia set up a temporary kitchen to feed the workers. Children ran around getting in the way, but also bringing laughter and lightness to the effort. The house that emerged was larger than the original, with 2 proper bedrooms, a generous main room, and even a small study off to the side. It was built with care and attention, every board and nail a testament to the community's solidarity. Olivia found herself embraced by the other ranch wives, who welcomed her warmly and shared stories and advice. For the first time in her life, she felt part of something larger than herself, part of a community that valued and supported her. On the day the house was completed, there was a celebration. People brought food for a feast and someone produced a fiddle. There was music and dancing and laughter. And as Olivia stood in the doorway of her new home, Nathan's arm around her waist, she felt a profound sense of belonging and joy. Vernon Thatcher made one final attempt to cause trouble. He filed a lawsuit claiming that Nathan had defaulted on a loan that Thatcher had supposedly given him. It was a complete fabrication, easily disproved, but it required Nathan to spend time and money defending himself in court. The case was heard before Judge Samuel Norton, an elderly but sharp-minded jurist who had little patience for nonsense. After reviewing the evidence, which consisted entirely of Thatcher's unsupported claims against Nathan's meticulous records, the judge dismissed the case and issued a stern warning to Thatcher about filing frivolous lawsuits. "Mr. Thatcher, this court has observed a troubling pattern in your recent legal activities," Judge Norton said. "You appear to be using the legal system as a weapon of harassment against the Vance family. If you file another baseless claim against them, I will hold you in contempt and impose significant fines. Do I make myself clear?" Thatcher left the courthouse in a rage, but he seemed to finally understand that he had lost. The community had turned against him. The legal system was no longer willing to be his tool, and Nathan and Olivia had proven more resilient than he had anticipated. After that, Thatcher's harassment ceased. Olivia heard through the local gossip network that he had returned to Boise, his reputation in Challis thoroughly ruined. She felt a vindictive satisfaction at his defeat, but mostly just relief that the ordeal was over. With Thatcher gone and the new house completed, Nathan and Olivia settled into a peaceful routine. The ranch continued to prosper. Nathan's skill with horses earned him a growing reputation, and buyers came from all over the territory to purchase animals he had trained. Olivia managed the books with careful attention, and under her stewardship, their savings grew steadily. But more than the material success, they found happiness in the life they had built together. Their partnership had evolved into a deep and abiding love, marked by mutual respect, honest communication, and genuine affection. They worked hard but also made time for pleasure, taking long rides together across their land, reading together in the evenings by the fire, making love with passion and tenderness. It was a year after their marriage when Olivia realized she was pregnant. She had missed her monthly courses and was feeling tired and slightly nauseated in the mornings. Part of her was terrified. She had no experience with children, and the thought of bringing a new life into the world was daunting. But another part of her was filled with joy. A child with Nathan, a child born out of love and partnership, a child who would grow up knowing security and affection. It was a beautiful thought. She told Nathan one evening after supper, as they sat together on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. "I have something to tell you," she said, her voice nervous. Nathan turned to her, attentive. "What is it?" "I am pregnant. We are going to have a child." For a moment, Nathan simply stared at her, his expression unreadable. Then a smile broke across his face, so wide and genuine that it transformed him. A child, we are having a child. Yes, are you happy? Happy, Olivia, I am thrilled. This is wonderful news. He pulled her into his arms, holding her carefully as though she were made of glass. Are you happy? I am scared, Olivia admitted. But yes, I am happy, very happy. You are going to be an amazing mother. How can you be so sure? Because you are kind and patient and strong. Because you understand what it is like to be hurt, and you will make sure our child never experiences that. Because I see how you are with the animals, gentle and caring. You will be wonderful, Olivia. The pregnancy was not easy. Olivia struggled with nausea for the first few months, and then with fatigue and discomfort as her body changed to accommodate the growing child. But Nathan was attentive and supportive, taking on extra household tasks without complaint, rubbing her aching back in the evenings, reassuring her when she worried about the birth. The community rallied around them again. The ranch wives, many of whom had given birth multiple times, shared their wisdom and experience. Old Mrs. Morrison, Jack's mother, was a skilled midwife, and she promised to be present when Olivia's time came. As winter gave way to spring and Olivia's pregnancy progressed, she found herself reflecting on how much her life had changed in less than 2 years. She had gone from being Marcus Ramsey's property, a woman with no agency or hope, to being Olivia Vance, a respected member of the community, a successful ranch partner, and a woman deeply loved by a good man. The transformation was almost miraculous. When her labor began on a warm afternoon in late May, Olivia was as ready as she could be. Mrs. Morrison arrived quickly, bringing with her a calm competence that was deeply reassuring. Nathan paced outside the bedroom, clearly torn between his desire to be supportive and his discomfort with the whole process. The labor was long and difficult. Olivia had never experienced pain like this, wave after wave of agony that left her gasping and sobbing. But Mrs. Morrison coached her through it with patient encouragement, and finally, as the sun was setting, Olivia gave a final push and felt the child slip from her body. The baby's cry was the most beautiful sound Olivia had ever heard. "It is a boy, Mrs. Morrison announced, wrapping the infant in a soft blanket and placing him in Olivia's arms. A healthy, beautiful boy. Olivia stared down at her son, overwhelmed with love. He was perfect, tiny and red-faced and squalling, but absolutely perfect. Nathan was allowed in then, and he approached the bed with wonder on his face. "We have a son," Olivia said, her voice thick with emotion. Nathan reached out tentatively to touch the baby's tiny hand, and the infant's fingers curled reflexively around his father's finger. Nathan's eyes filled with tears. "He is amazing. You are amazing. I love you both so much." They named him Thomas Marcus Vance. The first name was Nathan's father's name, and the middle name, surprisingly to Olivia, was her suggestion. When Nathan questioned it, she explained, "I do not want to pretend that part of my life never happened. Marcus Ramsey was not a good man, and my first marriage was a nightmare. But that experience led me here to you, to this life. If I had not married Marcus, if he had not died, you and I never would have met. So in a strange way, I owe him for the life I have now. Giving our son his name as a middle name feels like a way to acknowledge the past without letting it define us." Nathan kissed her forehead gently. "You are wise beyond your years, Olivia Vance. Thomas Marcus it is." The first year of Thomas's life was exhausting but joyful. Olivia discovered that she loved being a mother, despite the sleepless nights and constant demands. Nathan was an involved father, taking on his share of the child care without complaint. He changed diapers, walked the floor with Thomas when he was fussy, and sang lullabies in his surprisingly pleasant baritone. The ranch continued to thrive. They hired a young man named David to help with some of the heavier work, which freed up Nathan to spend more time with his growing family. Olivia continued to manage the books and found she enjoyed the challenge of juggling multiple responsibilities. When Thomas was 2 years old, Olivia became pregnant again. This time she knew what to expect, and while the pregnancy was still uncomfortable, she felt more confident and prepared. Their second child, a daughter they named Grace Eliza, arrived on a snowy December day. She had Olivia's dark hair and Nathan's blue eyes, and from the moment she was born, she had a sunny disposition that won everyone's heart. As their children grew, Olivia and Nathan made sure to raise them with the values that had defined their own relationship: respect, partnership, and the understanding that every person had inherent worth and dignity. They were careful never to use corporal punishment, instead teaching through patient explanation and logical consequences. They encouraged independence and curiosity, answering endless questions and supporting their children's interests. Thomas grew into a thoughtful, gentle boy who loved working with the horses like his father. Grace was more adventurous, always exploring and getting into harmless mischief. They played together with genuine affection, and Olivia often found herself marveling at the childhood she and Nathan were able to give them, so different from her own. The years passed peacefully. The ranch continued to grow and prosper. Nathan's reputation as a horse trainer spread throughout Idaho Territory and beyond, bringing buyers from as far away as California and Montana. Olivia expanded her role, taking over more of the business management and even traveling occasionally to negotiate contracts. They became pillars of the community, known for their fairness and generosity. When neighbors faced hardship, Nathan and Olivia were among the first to offer help. When disputes arose, people often sought their counsel, trusting their judgment and wisdom. One evening, when they had been married for nearly 8 years, Olivia and Nathan sat together on the porch watching Thomas, now 7, and Grace, now 5, play in the yard. The children's laughter rang out in the warm summer air, a sound that never failed to make Olivia smile. "Do you ever think about how unlikely all of this is?" Olivia asked, leaning against Nathan's shoulder. "How easily things could have gone differently, sometimes," Nathan admitted. "If Thatcher had not come to you with his proposal, if I had not decided to offer you an alternative, if you had not been brave enough to take a chance on a stranger." "I was not brave. I was desperate." "You were brave. Desperation makes some people reckless, but it made you strategic. You weighed your options and made a choice that served your best interests. That takes courage. I got lucky. I happened to meet a good man who actually meant what he said. And I got lucky. I happened to meet a strong woman who was willing to give me a chance to prove I was different from the men who had hurt her." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Olivia said quietly, "You know, when I was married to Marcus, I thought I understood what marriage was. I thought it was about ownership and control, about one person having power over another. That is what I had been taught, what I had observed, what I had experienced. The idea that marriage could be something else entirely, that it could be a partnership between equals, never even occurred to me." "And now," Nathan prompted, "now I know better. Marriage, real marriage, is about two people choosing to build a life together. It is about mutual respect and honest communication. It is about supporting each other through difficulties and celebrating successes together. It is about being a team, not a hierarchy." She turned to look at Nathan, her eyes shining. "You showed me what marriage should be. You showed me that I deserved respect and autonomy. You taught me that partnership is so much better than ownership." Nathan cupped her face in his hands, his expression tender. "You taught me just as much. You showed me that trust has to be earned, that words mean nothing without actions to back them up. You taught me patience and empathy. We have learned together, Olivia. That is what makes us strong. I love you, Olivia said simply. I love the life we have built, the family we have created, the partnership we share. I am so grateful for every moment. As am I. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Olivia Vance. They kissed, long and sweet, as the sun set behind the mountains and their children played nearby. It was a perfect moment, the kind that Olivia had never imagined possible during those dark days of her first marriage. Life was not always easy. They faced challenges over the years, droughts that threatened the cattle, illnesses that worried them, the normal struggles of raising children and managing a ranch. But they faced everything together, partners in the truest sense of the word. When Thomas was 12 and Grace was 10, Olivia and Nathan were surprised to discover they were expecting another child. At 37, Olivia had assumed her childbearing years were behind her, but nature had other plans. Their third child, another boy they named Samuel Nathan, arrived healthy and strong, and proved to be a delightful surprise that brought new energy to the family. Thomas and Grace adored their baby brother, and Olivia loved watching her older children help care for Samuel. It was clear that the values she and Nathan had worked so hard to instill had taken root. Their children were kind, responsible, and respectful, treating each other and others with consideration. The years continued to pass. The children grew. Thomas eventually took over much of the day-to-day running of the ranch, demonstrating the same patient skill with horses that his father had. Grace surprised everyone by developing a talent for business, and she took over the financial management from Olivia, bringing new ideas and strategies that increased their prosperity even further. Samuel, the youngest, proved to be the scholar of the family, always reading and asking questions. When he was old enough, he went east to attend college, though he returned every summer to help on the ranch and regale his family with stories of his studies. Nathan and Olivia grew older together, their love deepening with each passing year. The physical passion of their early years mellowed into a profound tenderness, though they never lost their affection for each other. They held hands when they walked, stole kisses when they thought no one was looking, and still talked long into the night about everything and nothing. On their 25th wedding anniversary, their children organized a celebration. Friends and neighbors from all over gathered at the ranch for a barbecue and dance. As Olivia looked around at the crowd, at the thriving ranch, at her grown children and their families, Thomas had married a sweet girl from Challies and already had 2 children of his own. She felt a profound sense of accomplishment and gratitude. "What are you thinking?" Nathan asked, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. "I am thinking about how blessed I am, how blessed we are. 25 years ago, I was standing in a cemetery, feeling nothing but relief that my nightmare had finally ended. I thought I had no future, no hope. I never could have imagined that I would end up here with all of this. You made this happen, Olivia. You were brave enough to take a chance, strong enough to trust again, wise enough to recognize an opportunity when it presented itself." "We made it happen together," Olivia corrected. "That is the whole point, is it not? Partnership means we both contribute, we both matter, we both make it work." That evening, as the party wound down and their guests departed, Nathan and Olivia stood together on their porch, watching the stars come out. They had done this countless times over the years, and it never got old, this simple pleasure of being together at the end of the day. "You have any regrets?" Nathan asked. "Not a single one," Olivia replied. "Every challenge, every difficulty, every moment of fear or doubt, it all led us here. And here is exactly where I want to be." even when I am an old man with creaky joints and gray hair." Olivia laughed and reached up to touch the silver that was indeed threading through Nathan's dark hair. "Especially then. You are even more handsome now than you were at 26. You are obligated to say that as my wife." "I am obligated to say nothing. That is the whole point of our partnership, remember. I choose to say it because it is true." They continued to run the ranch together for another 10 years, gradually turning over more responsibility to Thomas and Grace, but remaining active and involved. Nathan still broke horses, though he left the wildest ones to younger men. Olivia still kept an eye on the books, though Grace had long since taken over the daily management. When Nathan was 62, he suffered a mild heart attack. It was terrifying for Olivia, a reminder that their time together was not infinite. But Nathan recovered well, and the incident prompted them to make sure all their affairs were in order and to have serious conversations with their children about the future. "I am not ready to let you go," Olivia told Nathan one evening as he was recovering. "We have years left together yet." "I certainly hope so," Nathan replied. "I have no intention of going anywhere anytime soon. But that scare reminded me that we need to make sure you are taken care of, that the ranch is protected, that everything is set up so you will be secure no matter what happens." "I will be secure because I have you, because I have our children, because I have built a life that does not depend on any one person." "That is what you taught me, Nathan. You taught me that I could be strong and independent while still being part of a partnership. You gave me the tools to take care of myself, even as you committed to taking care of me. You have always been strong, Olivia. I just helped you remember that." Nathan lived another 12 years after that scare, healthy and active until the very end. When he finally passed away at the age of 74, it was peacefully in his sleep, lying next to Olivia in the bed they had shared for nearly 40 years. The grief was profound. Olivia felt as though part of her soul had been torn away. Nathan had been her partner, her love, her best friend for nearly 4 decades. The world felt emptier without him in it, but she was not the same woman who had stood over Marcus Ramsey's grave feeling nothing but relief. She mourned Nathan deeply and genuinely because she had lost something precious, not because she had lost someone who controlled her. And even in her grief, she knew she would be all right. Nathan had made sure of that, not by controlling or managing her life, but by partnering with her, by teaching her to be strong and capable, by showing her that she was enough all on her own. Olivia lived another 8 years after Nathan's death. She remained active in the ranch's management, though she increasingly left the day-to-day operations to Thomas and Grace. She doted on her grandchildren and great-grandchildren, telling them stories about their grandfather and the partnership that had defined her life. On warm summer evenings, she would sit on the porch, in the same spot where she and Nathan had sat so many times, and remember. She would remember the day they met, the unlikely proposal, the slow building of trust and love. She would remember the challenges they had faced together, the joy they had shared, the children they had raised. She would remember the way Nathan had looked at her, the sound of his laughter, the feel of his hand in hers. And she would remember the most important lesson he had taught her, that marriage was not about ownership but about partnership, not about control but about respect, not about dominance but about mutual support and love. It was a lesson she had passed on to her children, who had passed it on to their children, a legacy far more valuable than the prosperous ranch or the money in the bank. When Olivia passed away at the age of 82, she was surrounded by family who loved her, in a home that represented everything she and Nathan had built together. As her consciousness faded, her last thoughts were of Nathan, of the life they had shared, of the partnership that had transformed her from a woman who thought she was property into a woman who knew she was a person of infinite worth and dignity. The ranch continues to this day, passed down through generations of the Vance family. And though the world has changed in countless ways since those frontier days, the core lesson remains. The best relationships, the strongest bonds are built not on ownership or control but on partnership and respect. That was Nathan and Olivia's legacy, and it endures.